Excellencies, distinguished delegates, observers, and participants, it is my sincere pleasure to be with you at the opening of the 2022 edition of the SDG 16 conference. I warmly welcome you all to this important conference. I wish at the outset to acknowledge the invaluable contribution that the previous editions of this conference made in reviewing progress on SDG 16 and providing inputs to the deliberations of the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, the HLPF. As you are aware, the 2022 theme of the Council and the HLPF is Building Back Better from the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, while advancing the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This broad theme is more than just a slogan. It reflects a high level of ambition at a time of great need against the backdrop of unprecedented challenges. We must therefore not fall short of expectations. The High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development and the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations are determined to continue their global push to respond to the negative impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, and despite the monumental challenges brought by the pandemic and the climate crisis, move quickly to reach all the SDGs within this decade of action and delivery for sustainable development. The theme of this conference, People-Centered Governance in a Post-Pandemic World, is at the heart of the challenges we face today. Interlinkages between SDG 16 and other SDGs capture the essence of the 2030 Agenda as a universal and indivisible roadmap to our common future. The transformative vision of the 2030 Agenda calls for new thinking and new ways of working. One cannot hope to build a better future for all with the same old patterns of behavior, from the international level to the national level, in the public sector, and in society as a whole, to the local level. It is those ingrained habits that have led us to where we are today. The question then is, what do we mean by transforming governance? The four sub-themes of this conference cover critical facets of this problem. First, without peace, there cannot be sustainable development. Conflicts claim many lives, adversely affect basic human rights, exacerbate inequalities, hamper the delivery of basic services such as shelter and food, and further exclude women and girls, youth and other groups living in conditions of vulnerability from participation in society. Over the past year, we have seen growing violence and conflict as the pandemic has exposed and exacerbated tensions within and between countries. I hope that you will examine approaches to build and sustain development in conflict-affected contexts, including for the most vulnerable. Second, in order to address our current challenges, the rule of law and access to justice are paramount. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the justice gap has continued to widen. The pandemic has aggravated the impact of corruption on public finances and has also opened new avenues for corruption. These challenges compel governments and the international community to take a hard look at these issues and to strengthen the rule of law to effectively prevent and combat corruption and enable the less powerful to claim their rights. Third, it is critical to make institutions at all levels more inclusive and more resilient to shocks. Lessons learned from the pandemic must be translated into institutions and mechanisms that ensure the delivery of key public services to all, including health and education. Ways must also be found to make public institutions collaborate better amongst themselves, and most importantly, to enable the engagement of people and civil society, which has proved to be critical during the pandemic. Responsiveness is a key word here. it has to be accompanied by improved transparency and accountability. In all this, public servants and public service will have to play a key role. Equipping them with new mindsets, competencies, and tools to address these challenges should be a top priority. Fourth, leaving no one behind remains a cardinal principle for the achievement of the 2030 Agenda. This has become more apparent during the pandemic. As we have all observed, the impacts of the pandemic exacerbated the dire human and social impacts of inequalities and exclusion in multiple dimensions. It is therefore more urgent than ever to address inequality in a structural, multi-pronged way. During the pandemic, many countries have innovated to expand social protection systems, to continue to provide access to education and basic services, to support workers and entrepreneurs, and to develop digital government. We need much more to prevent and reverse adverse impacts of the crisis on women and girls and on vulnerable groups. We need much more to give voice to the youth. And we need much more to make the participation of all in the decisions that concern them a reality. Transforming governance is easier said than done. As a prerequisite, we need genuine dialogue among all those involved, from governments to civil society to other actors. In conclusion, I appreciate the multi-stakeholder nature of this conference, and I look forward to the conclusions of your deliberations. It will inform the debate of the high-level political forum on sustainable development in July. I thank you for your kind attention.